This is the Turf Zone Podcast, your central information and news hub, bringing together professionals from turf associations across multiple states to share things to help you in your business. Brought to you in partnership with our friends at the Virginia Turfgrass Council. This episode is sponsored in part by Sod, world-class service on demand. Visit us online at www.buysod.com. Now, let's get in the zone.
Welcome to the Turf Zone. In this episode of Virginia Turfgrass, we feature an article titled Unprecedented Fall Armyworm Pressure in the Mid-Atlantic in 2021, written by Mike Goatley, professor and extension turfgrass specialist, Tom Kuhar, professor and entomologist, and Alejandro del Pozo, assistant professor and entomologist, all of Virginia Tech. Fall armyworms have been a statewide regional problem on turfgrass systems across the Mid-Atlantic and Upper South in 2021. Although it is of little consolation, if your turf has been attacked, we can assure you that you are not alone this year. Dr. Tom Kuhar, professor of entomology at Virginia Tech, details that in his 20-plus year career at Virginia Tech, that he has never seen as much pressure from fall armyworms as he has this year. Here are some key points to share with your team and with your clientele for why the problem is so extreme in 2021. Why so much pressure this year? We never quite know what each year has in store for us, and our best guess this year is that fall armyworm pressure has been particularly high because of tropical weather systems and hurricane activity. The moths migrate northward every year, typically reaching the mid-Atlantic in early to mid-September, hence their common name of fall armyworm. This year, the moths arrived as early as we might see them. This is also of importance since it likely increases the number of generations of all armyworms we will likely have this year. Normally 2 to 3, but maybe more than 3 this year. The reason they arrived early is likely linked to the number of named storms that have in some form or fashion either directly or indirectly influenced the Mid-Atlantic region weather patterns in 2021. The moths are pushed along in the airstreams of these major weather makers. In 2021, Danny, Elsa, and Fred have all had impacts in the Mid-Atlantic. It might even be that Henry was a contributor to pushing moths further north and in greater populations than normal. Then there was Ida that tracked through the upper Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Ida almost assuredly brought moths along for the ride. This suggests we are not done with fall armyworm pressure for 2021 and that the problem with these pests will likely persist and possibly expand, although likely not as large in numbers as the first waves of the pest. What else is in play with their numbers this year? The populations grow not from just moths arriving from the south, but those that are here are mating and laying eggs after they have arrived. A single moth can lay between 100 and 200 eggs at a time, usually on the underside of leaves, and lay up to 1,500 eggs in their lifetime. During the summer, the life cycle can be completed in as little as 30 days. So consider the pure scope of numbers of worms that are possible in this situation, and these numbers for a pest that essentially will feed on almost any type of above-ground plant material, while knowing that lawns, corn, and forage crops are usually favored targets. We've recently added an extension publication about managing fall armyworms in lawns to the VCE Educational Resources website. Are the fall armyworms only attacking turf grasses? A quick survey of fall armyworm feeding activity that was conducted by both the Virginia Turfgrass Council and agents with the Virginia Cooperative Extension indicates that fall armyworms have caused significant damage to tall fescue and Bermuda grass in turf settings, but also to agricultural plants such as alfalfa, orchard grass, and millet. In general, fall armyworms have avoided crabgrass, sedges, and other broadleaf plants, things like dandelions and plantain, in the lawns. There have been no reports of damage to corn, cotton, ornamental plants, or vegetables. What can be done as treatment? This greatly depends on your situation and the clientele you are serving. Lawn care providers have simply been overwhelmed by the sheer number of problems they encountered this year, and there was no way to quickly service all of their clients. Insecticides recommended for control include most pyrethroids, Virginia Tech field trials on turf grasses indicate very good control of larvae with the pyrethroids, which are also one of the cheaper insecticide options available. Please note that control of large larvae is sometimes difficult with any insecticide. In surveying Virginia turfgrass managers, almost all that used the product reported that as a rapid, inexpensive, and highly effective knockdown fall armyworm treatment, granular formations of bifenthrin have done an excellent job. However, these products are very short-lived in duration, and while the bifenthrin addresses the immediate control of the caterpillars, it does very little for long-term or residual control if further generations of the insect emerge. The carbamate, lanate LV, and many of the more selective insecticides, such as the diamides, or indoxacarb products like Steward, Avant Evo, Provant, Spinosad, Radiant, Intrepid Edge, as well as others, have strong activity on fall armyworms. Our survey suggests that many Virginia turf managers that had applied chlorantraniliprole as an acelepryn earlier in the year received very good residual control of fall armyworms. Chlorantraniliprole is a more costly product than any of the pyrethroids, but is an exceptional caterpillar control product, offers an extended control period, and also serves as a very effective grubicide. Do note that chlorantraniliprole may take 2 to 3 days to actually kill larvae, but provides immediate feeding cessation and thus stops damage right away, even though the larvae are not dead. And remember that one of our most commonly applied insecticides for late summer grub control in lawns, imidacloprid, is essentially useless as a fall armyworm control product. Consult the relevant Virginia Cooperative Extension Pest Management Guide for specific recommendations. Remember, the label is the law, and labels vary for products, pests, and the plants being treated. Will the grass recover? Possibly. If the worms have not damaged the crowns, the turf grass will likely recover, especially with appropriate seasonal nitrogen fertility. The turf grass recovery should be fairly evident as cooler temperatures and fall rains arrive. If the damage is extreme, regrassing, either by seeding or sodding, will be necessary. At this time, there are no varieties of tall fescue that are proven to be resistant to fall armyworm pressure. However, it is always desirable to use the most improved genetics available, and those cultivars can be found on the Virginia Turfgrass Variety Recommendation List. You can also find publications specifically devoted to lawn establishment and renovation on the website. For all links, resources, and photos associated with this article, check out our show notes. And don't miss an episode of Virginia Turfgrass. You can subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also visit us at theturfzone.com.
You've been listening to The Turf Zone. Thank you to our sponsors, including Buy Sod, world-class service on demand. Visit us online at www.buysod.com. For more episodes of The Turf Zone, visit theturfzone.com and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app.